Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Okie dokie. So before we get started, I just like to let everybody know it's on the form and everything. But we do record all our consultations just so that way they're available in case you need to get any information from them down the line. Um, why don't we just go ahead and get started? And then you can go ahead and tell me about Ziggy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know things you're trying to work on, any issues that you're having, goals you're looking for with training, anything like that.
Yeah. Ziggy is a German Shepherd mix. He is what, a year and 3 months, a year, 4 months.
Hmm.
I got him as a he was a give up, so I got him then. Uh, we've
Hmm.
been we've been when I first got him, I was working from home and we were able to train a little bit more. But in September, I got a new job, and
Hmm.
so I haven't been at home as much, and my
Yeah.
training slacked off. So the biggest thing with Ziggy is I have one of those walking harnesses with the buckle up front
Hmm.
for walking, and for the most part we do loose leash walking,
Hmm.
just to give them space to do the bat to make to use the bathroom and whatnot. It's just the when he sees another dog, he gets a little bit too excited. He's not
Yeah.
aggressive. He wants to play, but I think just because he's a German Shepherd mix,
Hmm.
most people are scared of him, and so I just want to be a little bit better on the leash
Yeah.
when when we're walking.
Okay.
No,
Uh,
no, not. Sorry.
no, you're good. Okie dokie. So, was there anything additional that you also wanted to work on other than the walking, or is that just like the first thing?
Um, yeah, that's the first thing. I'm trying to think of other things. So he's gonna get neutered in a month,
Hmm.
and I've been told that it's gonna decrease because he likes to mount, especially
Hmm.
boys. I was told that it's gonna help with that a little bit.
Yeah.
So that is something I am a little concerned about, but it's also something that I hope gets taken care of with
Hmm.
the with this.
Yeah. Okie dokie. And then in the home, he's fine. You have no issues like when you guys are at home.
The only issue, and it's something that my girlfriend and I we disagree about, is
Uh,
when I leave him at home. Um, if I'm gone for, like, let's say 2 hours or less,
uh,
he has free range of the house. But if it's longer than 2 hours, I crate him, just
uh,
because he does get bored and he'll chew up a couch cushion, or um, he literally he ate the cord of a treadmill, which I was
oh, okay.
planning on using with him. So
Yeah.
I have a dead treadmill in my apartment right now.
Okay.
So
Um,
yeah, I mean, so she doesn't want to create them. She wants them to have free range, but if no one's home with him for
yeah.
hours on end, he's gonna get bored, and I don't want him to start chewing up uh, drywall or
Yeah.
carpet. He's chewed up a little bit of carpet before,
Uh-huh.
but that's it.
Okay. And then when you're leaving, do you notice him start to get like stressed or anxious or anything? Or is he just kind of whatever?
He gets a little sad.
Okay.
I want to
Uh,
say it's super. It used to be really, when I first got him, he was super anxious. He's
yeah.
definitely calmed down, but he still gets a little sad, I guess.
Okay. Um, Okie dokie. And then would you say that all of those things pretty much cover everything you'd like to address with training?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Everything.
Um, so I'll start off with the walking stuff a little bit and explain kind of maybe what's going on now and like how we would be able to address it. And then after that, I'll go into more specific training stuff that we would do. So for the walking, right off the bat, harnesses are usually not recommended if your dog is pulling a lot, just because it enforces this thing called opposition reflex. And with
Mhm.
opposition reflex, it's basically like something that's going to put pressure against the dog. They're going to want to go into it more. That's why harnesses work really well for dogs who are doing like sled dog stuff, or they're doing um, fight work with like as like a police dog or something, because it promotes
Yeah.
the pulling, and it's also on the strongest part of their body. So they have the most leverage there. So if they were to pull, now they have all their power available to them, and it's kind of allows them to be pulling more. So
So
not to say that you say it again.
yeah. His has the one up front by his shoulders. So
Yeah,
when he does it, it turns his shoulders.
yeah,
S-
yeah. That can help a little bit, but at the end of the
Mhm.
day, he's still not like being deterred from pulling, because that's a very comfortable area for him. So he may
Okay.
turn, but the mentality is that he's still comfortable with pulling, if that makes sense. Um,
Yes. Okay.
and then, uh, so the with the harness, there's nothing really deterring them from pulling. It's not on it's on the strongest part of their body. So right off the bat, it's not that you can't use it. You can definitely use it down the line, but ideally we're not relying on the harness to fix the pulling, because we're going to be working against ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and then with the being excited on the walk, that makes sense if he's friendly and he wants to play and everything. Most likely, what is happening with these other dogs being more like intimidated is that Ziggy's probably coming up with just too much energy. And in the dog world, dogs view energy as instability, or excitement, I should say, view excitement as instability. So even if it's like he wants to play, or something that seems like it wouldn't cause a problem at all, it's still excitement. So it's still going to make these other dogs kind of feel uncomfortable, especially if they are have their own issues where they're reactive, or maybe the owner's like pulling back on them and increasing that tension. Um, and then another thing with that is that most likely with the harness, his excitement is getting amped up more than it normally would be, just because when you're pulling against the dog there, you're creating more tension, and that's going to cause whatever excitement that he's having to just build and build and build, because there's more tension, if that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so that's like a little bit about why you might be having some difficulties um, right now, just even walking him without any like special training tool or anything like that. So it's something to keep in mind. And then uh, the the being like crated and everything, I'll say that I'm a big fan of the crate in general, just because
Yeah.
the way that we view it here is that like the time outside of the crate when they have the free roam, that's like a privilege that they like earn, just because we can trust them, they're being good and everything's solid. The crate is kind of like the default. And right now, obviously, for my dog personally, I don't really have to crate him that much, but it's because I relied on it so heavily at the beginning. So that way he knows that like him being out and roaming around is like that's like a plus. That's not like something he just has a right to.
Right.
So that's something that can help. Definitely, I would recommend. Um, like my personal recommendation would be to definitely rely on the crate when you're going to be outside of the house, because if he doesn't get an opportunity to chew anything, at the very least, that habit's not being reinforced. Because
Yeah.
every time that he's getting away with chewing anything, the carpet, the piece of the treadmill, anything like that, he's like just building it up more and more that this is something he can do to relieve whatever stress that he might be feeling. So I would say definitely you're on the right track with using the crate. Um, I know that it may not be the most, how do I put it, like fun thing to do or nice thing to do with the dog.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you want to make sure that you create that structure for them so that way they're not going to be getting into these troublesome situations where they can also, ingest something that might hurt them. So that's the way that I would look at that. And it seems like you already would kind of view it that way, anyways.
Yeah.
Um, and then for the little bit of how you said that he gets kind of sad when you leave. I would say, judging from what he does after a certain amount of time that you're gone with the chewing and all that, there's probably a little bit of separation anxiety there. Just
Yeah.
because you said you were working from home and you were like with him and everything. So now this is a big change where you're not with him as much anymore. And it happens to a lot of dogs, especially with the whole pandemic stuff. The separation anxiety starts to kick in. And it doesn't sound like it's too terrible right now, but we've seen it to where
Yeah.
dogs have such an intense degree where they're like breaking through windows, they're like chewing up doors and everything. So we definitely
Yeah.
want to address that before it gets worse. Um,
Yeah. So just to let you know, it was pretty bad when I first got him.
yeah.
Uh, I remember one time because he was giving up, and I took him in, and I was in my apartment for 2 weeks, and
Uh-huh.
then I had to move. So then we were into another apartment, which was a lot of change for him, right? 3 different places in a matter of a month.
Yeah.
And so I remember one time, like I had to run outside to grab keys, the hand keys for the laundry unit, and
Uh-huh.
he just went. He used the bathroom all over the new apartment, like.
Oh, okay.
But I have been working with him on the anxiety. There's a
Yeah.
couple of different things. I pack a Kong for him every morning when I do go to work, and
Uh-huh.
so that the chewing and the getting the treats out, like that's helped a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Like he's from the day I got him, day one till now, he's changed so much, but there is still a little bit of that anxiety.
Yeah.
So yeah, just trying to reel it home, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So what you've been doing, like, sounds good to me. One thing that I'll say is that um, when people do the things with like the Kong stuff and providing them things to chew, um, you are helping the situation, but in more of this is not like a negative term, but like more of like a band-aid fix, because
Mhm.
ideally we want to get at the behavior with the Kong and stuff like that. We're just kind of redirecting that anxiety rather than getting rid of it.
Okay.
So that's most likely why you've seen really good results with that as well, because he's able to take the stress, the anxiety that he's feeling, and put it onto this chew toy so that he can kind of work it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he's never really learning that having that anxiety is not a good thing. He's just learning how to like move it to something else, which
Yeah.
is better than how he started with you, obviously. But our goal would be to just kind of work on getting rid of that anxiety altogether, so that way he doesn't necessarily need anything to help cope with it. He just knows how to kind of move through it, if that makes sense. Um,
Yeah, it does.
so with um, all of this stuff, did you have any questions about what I said so far?
No, everything makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so now I'll start to kind of go a little bit more into the training. Um, are you familiar with the concept of like physicality with dogs and everything like that?
No.
Okay. Um, have you ever seen like Caesar Milan?
A little bit, not too much.
Okay. So when we're talking about physicality with dogs, we're talking about using or communicating with a dog in the way that they would already communicate with each other. So, for example, there's tons of videos on YouTube. There's one like really popular one where this mother Korean retriever goes into a playpen with all of her puppies, and they all have too much energy. They're all over her, they're nipping her, they're just excited to see mom. So she is getting bothered by this. She wants some space. So what she does is she nips at one of them, and then they all back up, they all sit down, and they all kind of relax. And then after everything's chill, she allows the dogs to come up and do whatever they're going to do. But now instead of a 10 out of 10, they're at like a 5 out of 10. So
Yeah.
from a very young age, they're learning that basically this dog bite means no, or means to not do whatever I'm doing at this moment. And you could even see that with like dogs in like a park as adults still, where a dog may have a toy and another dog wants to come over and take it. So then that dog's going to say, no, you're not going to take my toy. And then we'll try and go for a bite on that dog. And then maybe that dog learns, okay, I just don't try and take other dogs' toys now. Granted, some dogs do not have the best control with it. That's why we don't always just leave it up to them. But it's something that they understand, as opposed to how you and me have language. They use kind of physicality.
Yeah.
So the way that I would think about it is that this way of communicating between them with the physicality is like a very direct way of saying no. And then where we give them treats and rewards and stuff is a very direct way of saying yes. So now there's kind of the two sides of what we don't want and what we want. When we're introducing physicality with dogs, there's many different ways that people do it, and there's many different tools. For example, with Cesar Milan, I don't know if you've ever seen him do like that, like touch that he does with the dog, and then he makes like the like noise and everything like that.
Yeah.
That is introducing physicality, but it's in the form of a hand correction. So he's using his hand to put pressure on the dog's side between the hip and the ribs here, where it's just soft. So he's not hurting anything. But he does that, and then that's his way of adding in kind of no, like don't do that if the dog is doing something that is like not good. Other ways that this gets introduced is through things like the gentle leader, a slip lead, a prong collar, and then the primary way that we train, which is the e-collar. So with those other forms of physicality, they're really good, especially to introducing a dog to different things, but they all kind of have a ceiling. So like a gentle leader is only going to work so far. If the dog really doesn't want to move with the gentle leader, he's just going to make that decision and not move with it. Same thing with, a slip lead that tightens a little bit on the neck as they pull. Some dogs do not care at all. And then same thing with the prong collar, so on and so forth. Do you have any questions on the idea of like physicality so far?
No.
Okay. So that kind of brings us to the more advanced training tools, where it's something like a prong collar or something like that. And with the prong collar, that's a really good way of adding in pressure and teaching them how to move with everything. But it's not really our favorite way of doing things. So sometimes it can work really well for certain dogs, and sometimes it can be very, like, I'll break down the ways that there's some issues with it, would be easier. So, sorry, there's just some people in the background right now. With the prong collar, the first thing is that, one, it can be very inconsistent between people that are using it. So maybe the way that I use the prong collar is very different from the way that you use the prong collar, which is going to be different from the way your girlfriend might use it. So then we're starting to see Ziggy maybe play by different rules with different people. And it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but we would like everything to just be consistent with everybody. So that's one thing. Second thing is that we can't really have that the use of the prong collar from a distance. So let's say you're on a walk with him, he pulls, and maybe it's catches you off guard, you drop the leash or something. Well, now we don't have our tool anymore because we need the leash to make it happen. So we really don't have that reliable recall. Then the third thing is that sometimes it can add unnecessary confrontation. So it's very easy for Ziggy to understand, like, okay, this prong collar is doing this, and then I could see the leash going from me to dad. So I have a problem with dad right now. And sometimes that confrontation can be a lot to work through, and it's not really worth it, especially for a lot of owners who are not just trying to become like full-on dog trainers themselves. Um, so those are kind of the downsides of it. But the upside is that it's mimicking that dog bite, it's introducing that pressure, it starts to give you a clearer way of explaining what not to do for the dog. And then that brings us to e-collar, and why we favor it more is because all of those issues kind of get addressed. Before I go too much more in depth with the e-collar, are you have you ever been to a physical therapist office?
So I've had a dog before, and I've used e-collar before.
Okay.
But yes, it's like stimulation, the
Yeah.
stimulation. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. So with that, we can now get things like the off leash recall and all that. We don't have to worry about having the leash directly in our hand to address a lot of things. Um, and the confrontation is gone, just because if Ziggy's doing something and we tap on the e-collar, he's not able to understand, like, okay, that was this remote control collar that sends a signal to the remote that dad has. It's just too complicated for them. And then lastly, very easily transferable, whatever number it's set to is going to be the same number for everybody, no matter what. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So starting off with something like the walking, the way that we would go about it is that um, we would use our heel command. And that's the first thing that we teach no matter what program you go with, just because it's very important in explaining to the dog how they are in control of the pressure and the e-collar, really, by having them kind of figure out that when they move with the pressure, the e-collar doesn't happen. When they go against the pressure, e-collar happens, and then they learn, like, okay, I just kind of move with everything and everything's fine. So our heel command is very in depth. What it is that Ziggy should be on your left side, right shoulder in line with your left leg. He shouldn't pass you, shouldn't go behind you, shouldn't go to your right side. And then when you come to a stop, he should go into an automatic sit next to you the whole time while he's in the heel command. So it's a lot for the dog to focus on, both physically and mentally. And since they have to keep track of all that stuff, usually what will happen is that a lot of the other smaller issues on the walk kind of correct themselves, just because it's so involved that he doesn't have time to maybe worry about this other dog that's walking by, or he doesn't have time to get excited with these other people over here. Um, and then the pulling shouldn't really be an issue anymore either. So technically, you wouldn't even need to use something like a harness to pull him back or anything, because we would have it all loose leash the whole time, which is what would be the goal. But that's kind of the basics to address the walking. Any questions with that?
No, not right now.
Okay. One more thing I want to add about the e-collar that I didn't mention earlier is that the e-collars that we use, I don't know what kind did you use in the past?
So the one in the past, I can't remember. I got it off Amazon. It worked pretty well.
Yeah.
I got one for him that was a hand-me-down brother. Same thing, Amazon, but this one's like really shitty. And I was gonna ask you,
Yeah.
what brand do you guys?
Yeah. So the brand that we use is Dogtra. They're like specifically for like working dogs and everything. Like I'm pretty sure like they're used with um police dogs and everything like that. So they're very like top of the line. And our head trainer, our boss, founder, Jesse, has been using them for 10 plus years, and they've just been perfect. The big difference with these collars is that one, they go from 0 to 127. I don't know if what your other collar kind of like maxed out as, but a lot of them go from, let's say, like 1 to 10. So their 10 would be the same as our 127. We just have a larger gradient in between to find exactly what's going to be
Yeah.
working best without it being too overwhelming or not important at all. So does that answer your question there?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Um, and then at the end of the consultation as well, I'll recommend like a specific collar um, that you can try from Dogtra, just because there's a lot of different ones. Some of them are more for smaller dogs, and some of them are better suited for larger dogs. So we'll get to that at the end as well. Um, and then with the e-collar, we can also get into addressing more of that separation anxiety as well. That one's probably one of the more difficult things to address just because it happens when you're not there. But there's different scenarios that can be set up to try and work him through that. I would say one of the biggest things is having him in the crate more. And then if you're noticing, does he ever get like stressed or like anxious in the crate?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It recently has calmed down, but
Uh-huh.
has, yeah.
Okay. So that would be like the first like big thing I would say to work on is trying to address that anxiety and stress in the kennel first before we're going to try and address it like in the home in general. Because once that's addressed, then he's starting to learn that this feeling of anxiety, this feeling of stress is not going to do anything. It's not helping him. It's not something that is worth it to be feeling, really. So the way that that would work is just he would obviously have more time in the kennel. Then when he's getting stressed, we would already have the e-collar on him, and the goal would be to correct the behavior when the anxiety is getting too much. So when he starts exhibiting those outward signs where, maybe he goes to the front of the kennel and paws at the gate, or maybe he starts being very vocal, we would start correcting that just so that way he's learning that all of these things that he's trying to do to get the anxiety out are not proper mechanisms to go by. And once he learns that, okay, pressure stops if I just kind of chill out and settle down, then the default should become, all right, I'm just going to chill out, settle down. There's nothing to be worried about. Like, if I freak out, it's just not good anyways. So I'm going to just chill. And then we would kind of be bringing him down from that maybe like 8 out of 10 stress to like a 6 out of 10, and then 5, 4, 3, 2. And we can get more and more strict with it as he starts to calm down. But addressing it in the kennel is going to be very important because the kennel should basically be like his safe space, like his go-to spot where he's like, I'm just comfortable here. Um, if he's having issues with the kennel, we can already expect that he's just going to have a hard time in the house. So once the kennel stuff is addressed, then the house thing can become a more of like a more often thing where he won't be having all this stress and anxiety, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Um, any questions with that so far?
So, so you're saying like when I'm at home and I put them in the kennel
Hmm.
and correct them there, like, if I'm sitting on the couch, kind of correct them.
Yeah, yeah,
Otherwise, I'll be at
exactly.
work. Yeah, I can't. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because if you're out of the house and you're trying to address it, especially if he's like free roaming,
Yeah.
there's not much you can do. It's just kind of like you don't know when he's doing it. You don't know you're probably not even like close enough to the home or anything. So it's much more complicated at that level, but we can kind of mimic that anxiety by just having him in the crate when you are home. And if he's getting stressed, then we can start making some progress there so that way we don't have so much work ahead if he was to just be out in the house and everything.
Right.
Um, so that's like a big thing. And um, I would say like the more often you do it, the faster the turnaround time is going to be. So like when you're home, maybe like you start with like just a few hours and you know that you're going to have the e-collar on him, he's in the kennel, maybe you just want to watch a movie and for that duration he's there. Then you correct whatever you need to correct, make sure he's like all settled before he comes out of the crate, and then you let him out and then good. Okay, that was a good session. Maybe the next day you try for like a little bit more time and a little bit more time until he's just going in the kennel, he's just laying down, relaxing, and then you open the kennel, you let him out. Everything's very smooth. That's going to go a long way in making him overall better in the house.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
And then as far as like managing the energy a lot with like having all that extra excitement, like when meeting dogs and stuff, a lot of that would be the same idea where it's okay for him to be excited. It's okay for him to like want to play and everything. It's just maybe when he gets to this higher level of excitement where it's like too much for the other dog, then we would correct there just to keep him at a more calm level of excitement. So we're not correcting him so that way he's just not excited. It's just enough to where he doesn't get to this like maxed out level.
Yeah.
And that's pretty straightforward as well. It's basically the same idea, just when you're seeing the signs of him getting amped up to a degree that's like too much, then we just correct, basically telling him like, no, we don't need that behavior right now. And then over time, he should just think, okay, I can get excited with this dog. I just can't like go crazy and want to play with them like intensely. Um, so that one's
Yeah.
very straightforward as well. Any questions so far with the training or the e-collar and how any of that would work?
Nope. Pretty
Okay.
straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, it usually is. It's just more of having that consistency and making sure that there's a good follow through.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a lot of people will do all the work and then their dog starts to get stressed, but they never work through that stress. Rather, they see the dog getting stressed and then they stop completely. And now the dog is just learning that if I get to this level of stress, then everything will stop. He doesn't have to like figure it out and get through it. Rather, he can just kind of get stressed and then it never gets addressed. So that's like a big thing that usually is like going to decide how much progress somebody is able to make in a shorter amount of time. But it is all pretty like straightforward once you just get a few commands down and then you're kind of like just moving with it and using it wherever it may seem applicable. Another thing that would be added in whatever program that you decide to go with is the recall command. Just because that's obviously a very important one. We always want to be able to get our dog back. And then that one should also get to a degree where it should be off leash reliable because that's the only one that really matters off leash. So that is also kind of, I know I don't think you mentioned recall directly, but that's just going to be a part of it, whatever, because it's like that's just
Yeah.
an important one.
Yeah.
Any other questions, or did that all? Was that all?
No,
Okay. Okay.
especially at the end where you added the recall, because
Yeah.
we'll be at the park. Well, there's a park close to me where it's a big softball and baseball field, but it's gated all around, so it's and right now it's just me and him out there because it's so cold and we're playing fetch, and he does fine,
Yeah.
but sometimes another dog and run to the fence. He can't go out to the street or can't go out to meet the other dog, but he will just see another dog and take off.
Mhm. Yeah.
And me trying to yell his name, he's not recalling. So that's a good one that I didn't
Yeah.
think of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That one's going to help a lot with structure too, just having that self control to be able to have that off switch. It usually everything working together, just kind of each problem kind of helps each other as they're getting fixed, just because there's more structure, there's more like learning that self control and everything. So that's included in whatever that you do. It's going to be heal and recall are the two main ones, and then with the more behavior stuff, that's just going to be like additional things.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there like anything else that you were trying to address with the training specifically, or would this kind of like balance out everything that you're looking for pretty much?
I think right now it's going to balance everything that I'm looking for.
Okay.
You know, him and I like, I'm, I try to be a little bit more active with him, so I want to
Yeah.
try to be more running. But I mean, all
Uh-huh.
that's going to be care of when we're doing the heel and he's running
Yeah.
alongside.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and and then the other dog I had, it was a little bit easier to train her because it was me, an ex-girlfriend, and my brother were around. So and we
Mhm.
had the e-collar, and it was very structured. I used to go for runs without a leash. You
Yeah.
know, the dog was the dog might run a little bit, a few feet, a couple feet in front or a couple feet behind, but she was almost right there. And if another dog came running, I could always recall her. So
Yeah.
um, it's just like you were saying, that consistency, and it's something that I don't have now because it's right now it's just me because I live
Yeah.
by myself, and
Uh-huh.
so it's right now it's just me, and so yeah, I think that's taking care of everything that I'm looking for, at least as of right now. In the future, stuff might come up, and I
Mhm.
can always bring guys.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds good to me. Did you have a chance to look at the programs, or was there a specific way that you were kind of leaning as far as what you were looking to do?
Oh, I didn't see the programs. No.
Okay, no problem. I'll just share my recommendations with you then.
Okay.
Um, as far as addressing all of this, uh, the most recommended type of program would be the in-person, just because you're there with Ziggy and with the trainer, doing everything in the moment. So it's always going to be the best for the owner. But
Mhm.
at the same time, the downsides of the in-person is that it does take a little bit longer because it's only one class a week. And then if your schedule is like hard to work around, sometimes that can be something to take into account if you're not able to find a good spot for your specific lesson time.
Yeah.
Um, on the flip side, something like a board and train can also work for Ziggy just because there's not any large issues with like aggression or reactivity necessarily. So he would still be eligible for one of those programs. And the plus of the board and train or the daycare and train is that it will happen a lot faster just because he'll be here with us more often. All the trainers here, have experience with many types of dogs, including ones like Ziggy. So uh, we can make everything just move quicker, but at the same time, uh, we're technically doing a lot of the work on the front end, and then we will just be catching you up in like follow up lessons. So
Yeah.
the way that the board and train works here is that, let's say Ziggy was to come in for a 2 week board and train. Uh, he would get one video per week of us going over the commands with him for the first time. And since it's a board and train and we can make stuff happen faster, we go over all like 6 basic commands. So he would learn heel, sit, down, stay, recall, and place. And that first week, you would get the video of all those commands on the short leash. And then second week, you would get the video of all those commands now on the long leash. So that way it's like making it more difficult for him and simulating that off leash exposure kind of. And then with the board and train and daycare and train, the way that the follow up hours work is that you have a set amount of hours. So let's say again with the 2 week, you get 4 hours. Then you can schedule those however you like. And it's pretty much like doing the in person, but you can just decide based on your schedule. So, like, maybe you do like an hour when you come and pick them up, or maybe you do like an hour and a half down the road, or maybe one of the hours you want as an in home session because he's doing something in the house that you're having trouble addressing. So that's how that one works. It's a lot more flexible and faster, but technically you're not there for all the beginning stuff. Um,
Right.
so was there like a preference based on doing like in person or having something more of like a board and train or a daycare and train?
I was thinking more in person just because you're not going to be just training him. You'll be
Yeah,
also and I
yeah,
think the videos seem nice, but I'm more of a in-person type of learner.
yeah, perfect.
I was
Um,
towards.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for the in person, I would say that you should stay between the way that those programs work are 3 week, 6 week, 9 week, and 12 week. So for Ziggy's things, I would say that you can stay between a 3 week and a 6 week program. So I wouldn't do any more than 6 weeks. And then at the baseline, 3 weeks would be necessary just to, at the very least, do 2 classes on heel, 1 class on recall. And then if you want an additional in-home session, you can always add that on. If you did 6 weeks, the way that that would break up would be 2 classes on recall, or sorry, 2 classes on heel, 1 class on recall, and then those 3 other classes would be more geared to any behavioral issues in the home, or just advancing any specific type of command. So maybe you want your recall to be like better, or you feel like you're having trouble with it, or you want like a more advanced like emergency down where Ziggy could be coming back to you, but you say down and he just drops. That's like stuff that you can use that extra time for. And you can also save 1 or 2 of those classes down the line if you don't have a use for it right now, but you still want to hold on to them in case you do something with him later. But past 6 weeks, I think it would be not worth the money. It would just be too many classes for what you're looking for. And yeah, I would say that between those two, it just depends on how much you're trying to go for. Where 6 week would be a little bit more control and a little bit kind of getting into slightly more advanced stuff, and then 3 week being like the bare minimum.
Yeah, probably the 6 week is what I'm thinking. Because
Okay.
yeah, just maybe get a little bit more advanced.
Mhm.
I know he's very high energy, so being something a little bit more in depth and maybe
Yeah.
a little bit more off leash and not
Mhm.
worry to be,
Yeah.
run.
Yeah. The 6 week will definitely go a long way with that. Especially since you have those extra classes to really work on something that he might be having difficulties with. Um, and then for Ziggy, there's 2 trainers that you could do in person with. It's either going to be Enrique or Jesse. I would recommend Enrique because he's handled dogs like this before and his price is a little bit lower. So it'll
Yeah,
just be like more affordable. You can go with Jesse if you'd like to, but I don't think it would be necessary. And in my opinion, might as well save, a little bit of money.
yeah,
Um, and then for the collar, um, I would say probably just based on the type of dog he is, and then his excitement and everything, and the little bit of stress that he's having at home in the kennel and all that. Right now, I would recommend the Dogtra 1900S Black Edition, and that's for the larger working dogs. So not necessarily that we would be like needing all the extra power, but
yeah.
it's nice to have that wider range. So that way, maybe there's a situation that's just like so exciting for Ziggy that we do need to go up a little higher. We don't want to be on a lower collar and then max out, and then now it's not like Ziggy's not picking up on it at all.
What's the range on that?
It's still 0 to 127, but
No,
the
sorry, like
the range. Oh, okay.
yeah, range the feet wise.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that one is a full mile or a mile and a quarter. So it's pretty far.
It's pretty far. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I had
Um,
the last dog had one where she took off after some geese and she
mhm.
ran. It wasn't that it was like 300 yards
Oh, okay.
was my range, and
Yeah.
yeah, it just kept
Yeah, no,
going
these
down
ones
the
go pretty
neighborhood.
far. We haven't had
Yeah,
anybody have an issue with like the 1 mile radius or anything yet. So, um, and then recommend 6 week with Enrique. Um, and all of this will be in a follow-up email that you'll receive after the consultation as well, just so that way, you have all the information still available to you in case you
Yeah.
need to look at it
You
again.
leash. So
Say
you were
again?
talking. You were also mentioning a leash earlier that you
Yeah,
were.
so you can either I would recommend you can go about it two ways where you have a normal, like standard buckle flat collar with a clip leash, or you can use a slip lead. Are you familiar with a slip lead?
Is that the one that just goes over their head and then it tightens up?
Yeah, and then
As
you pull like the thing down to like
yeah.
so that it locks. Yeah, that one is one that we use to handle like all our dogs here, just because it's very like easy to use, very straightforward with like the pressure and everything. It's going to give you more control just right off the bat. So clip leash with a flat collar or slip lead would both be preferred over a harness.
Yeah.
Um, but once we get into the training, then obviously the goal would be to have it to where we're not really using the leash at all. But
Right.
for now, those will definitely be like an improvement with the walking and everything.
Okay.
Um, and then as far as the collar goes, you're more than welcome to purchase it on your own. But if you end up doing a program with us anyways, we have all the dog trick collars here because we retail for them. So what can happen is that we can bring the collar to your first lesson with Ziggy, so that way once you get there, like everything will be available for you in that moment. But however you would like to do it is really up to you.
Okay.
Any other questions with the training, with the program, collar, anything like that?
So for the training, I know you guys are gonna be busy on the weekends.
Mhm.
But I would, my schedule during the week is just crazy. Sometimes, I leave like at 6:30 in the morning, sometimes at 9, and I
Yeah,
don't get till 6:30 or 9. So
yeah.
Saturdays would probably be the best for me,
Mhm.
to be honest. And it's so like would Enrique have something available on Saturdays?
Yeah, he does work on Saturdays, so his schedule is like available on Saturdays, but it just depends on what time slot you're trying to get and where the other clients fall. So that's something where um, I will have Enrique's assistant, Tina, get in touch with you, and she'll be able to let you know his schedule and how things look. So that way you can plan a time that's going to work best for you. But he does work on Saturdays and Sundays, so you should be able to find a time there.
Okay.
Let me see. And then I'll just write that down as a note. Did you have any other questions other than the scheduling stuff there?
Um, no, not right now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you think of anything as well, yeah, feel free to reply to the follow-up email, and either one of the staff here or myself or one of the other trainers can always get back to you. Um, so if anything comes up, or if you just have something that you're unsure of, feel free to email and we can answer it.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll go ahead, get this all to Enrique's assistant, and then we can get to figuring out the program and everything like that.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem. You have a nice day.
Too.
Bye bye.